to Isabel Oakeshott now. She is Talk's international editor. Isabel, this is a massive U-turn from the government. I don't really care about the politics. I'm just delighted they've come to their senses. What do you think?
Well, I think that they were always going to have to offer something on a plate because there's so much political pressure, and that's why they've come up with what, frankly, I think is a bit of a dog's breakfast. I don't want to be disparaging about it because I suppose they're doing something. And also, by the way, I don't think anyone wanted a national inquiry of the type of national inquiries, public inquiries that we've had in other areas that have taken years and years and years and years. That wouldn't have been any good at all. But the idea that Baroness Louise Casey can, within a period of 3 months, produce anything really worthwhile, looking at such a vast subject, I think is absolutely for the birds. You know, I immerse myself in new subjects to write books, and I can tell you, you can't get an awful lot done in 3 months, you know, in terms of research, and then writing it all in a period of 3 months on a subject such as this, spanning however many years, decades it's been going on. This is going to be very, very superficial. And in terms of the local inquiries, I'm sure that people in the so-called pilot scheme areas will be pleased about that. But to me, what's actually missing is the national dimension, the reason that all of this has kind of exploded into the public consciousness recently, when in fact it's been going on in a kind of drip way for very, very many years, is because there's never been an effort to bring it all together, to actually draw out the key themes from what has happened in different parts of the country, very much like the post office scandal, actually, where, you know, we were all peripherally aware that there were a number of postmasters in different places that were having some kind of difficulty, but no one actually drew it all together for a very long time. So to me, the solution that they've come up with is a real dog's breakfast, actually.
It's also, I suppose, the repetitive nature of it, because sometimes those local inquiries, as I heard from Tom Crowther previously, can actually get under the skin of these things properly, talk to people in a less confrontational way. But I absolutely take your point, in the sense that there will be links. There will be children who have been trafficked, for example, from one area to another. There'll be links between specific areas and gangs who, I mean, this is essentially the sex version of the rape version of county lines, child abuse side of county lines. And if you can't join the dots in all of this, and also you don't have a national inquiry which has powers under the Inquiries Act to call people to get persons' papers and records, well, some people might say, what's the point, essentially, Isabel?
Well, I know, and I actually kind of agree with that. It feels that the point, as far as the government is concerned, is to take the heat out of this, you know, to stop, in particular, Reform UK from launching their own inquiry, which is the last thing that any of the other parties would want to happen. So I think the point of this is actually, unfortunately, politics, and that's no good to victims, not just victims past, but those who are still being caught up and dragged into this horrible, horrible behaviour, because all the anecdotal evidence, if not more than anecdotal, is that some of these practices are still going on quite a large scale in many parts of our country. So I say I don't want to just be negative and say it's all hopeless and all pointless, but I would have liked to have seen something a bit longer than 3 months from Louise Casey. A year might have felt a bit more sensible, really. She's very experienced at this type of thing, but sometimes doesn't it feel like, you know, it's not one size fits all. Other investigators are available.
Yeah, well, indeed. And also she's got a lot to do in the Social Care Commission as well, and surely she should be, you know, she only has time to focus on one thing. Speaking of people who have some focus, lost their focus, needing to gain a focus depending on your perspective, in her first keynote speech of 2025, and really properly as Conservative leader, essentially, Kemi Badenoch has set out what her leadership will actually look like. She's been leader of the Conservative Party for, what, 10, 12 weeks, something like that. Let's just see what she has been saying this afternoon about her leadership.
It may not feel like it right now, but our country's best days are ahead of us. Britain is a land of opportunity, not a country to apologise for. So if you want real plans rather than announcements, join us. And if you want a better country for our children, join us. Together, we can fix the damage that Labour is inflicting. Together, we can make politics work again for the first time in a generation. The Conservative Party is changing. We are under new leadership. We are back in the service of the British people, and we are going to give you your country back.
Kemi Badenoch also talked about immigration. She had some pretty strong words on that.
And no ifs, no buts. We simply cannot take all the millions of people who want to come here from elsewhere. Our country is our home. It is not a hotel. If people arriving don't want to integrate into British culture, they shouldn't be here.
Well, Isabel, are you inspired?
So I listened to the whole thing, and the thing that really grated on me was that she said the Conservative Party is under new leadership. Oh, I think about 10 times. And it's very clear that their focus groups, the Conservative Party's focus groups, have said that she's got to keep saying this. But it actually becomes incredibly irritating if you just say it on a loop again and again within a space of a short time in one speech. So I was a bit fed up of hearing that. Secondly, the fundamental problem she's got is that when she says we are going to give you your country back, the entire nation, were they to be bored enough to be listening to her speech, would be thinking, but guys, you're the one that took it away in the first place. You know, you've spent 14 years taking away everything, or so much of what we hold dear. And so much of what she took aim at in the speech, she even admitted herself happened as a result of decisions that her own party took. So it's really, really difficult for Kemi Badenoch at this point to get a serious hearing. I think she is a serious person. She speaks very clearly. And so many of the things that she said will resonate with a lot of our listeners and viewers. You know, the idea that a shrinking number of people are working ever harder to pay for an ever-growing number of people who can't be bothered to work or, decide that they've got better things to do. I think lots of people will resonate with that. The idea that our country is not a hotel, I thought that was quite powerful. But at the end of the day, the Tories are the reason we are where we are, and sure, Labour is making it even worse, but they're not going to be forgiven that quickly.
Isabel, thank you. This is Isabel Oakeshott there, our international editor.